Hello, I'm Bert Bassett. I've been a business seller on eBay for over 20 years. I've even worked for eBay for 11 years. I've helped thousands of sellers of all sizes to grow their sales on eBay. Now I'm creating videos to help you. In this video, we'll just talk more about pricing your item. So further thoughts about making more money on eBay. And we'll do a quick summary of what I'm going to say in this video so you know whether you're going to be interested or not. What we're going to talk about is that for some items, it's not really about search so much. It's actually about making more money. If you have an item that is unusual rather than commoditized, that's specific, then what it means is people will just search for it if they want it. And if your item is exactly the thing that they want, then it's a question not of whether they're going to buy it or whether they're going to be able to find your item because they're searching very specifically for it. It's going to be about how much money you can make when they do find your item. I'm going to talk about not selling things too quickly. Get a load of comments on these videos saying, as long as you put the price right, stuff flies out the window. You don't really want that to happen. If you're selling things too quickly, it's an indication that you could have got more money for them. Then I'm going to be mean about auctions again, because I think that everybody should be reminded that auctions are your tool of last resort on eBay, and I'll explain why again. Then, strangely, I'm going to advise you to start thinking about buy it now like an auction, but a strange one in terms of thinking about how potential buyers might be competing against each other, price movement, that kind of thing. Then I'm going to talk to you about the theory of being the second cheapest. You don't necessarily actually want to be the cheapest person selling the item that you have, because again, you're not in a rush. You're not selling because you're on the run. Then we'll talk about thinking about uniqueness and how that might affect whether you buy something or source something that you're going to sell on eBay, based on how unusual it is or how many of them are for sale on the platform. And then what we'll do is we'll actually look at some examples of items and how they're being sold on eBay and what kind of pricing people are doing and how you might be able to do better. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then this is the video for you. So what am I talking about when I talk about items where I think the work is in getting the best price for it rather than necessarily doing well in search or any of those other things? What you're talking about is items that people are specifically looking for and really want. And I've used a classic example, Evel Knievel, big star on both sides of the Atlantic. And he had a toy which was, for a certain generation of children, the absolutely greatest toy, which is the Evel Knievel stunt motorcycle. Now, theoretically, people could be buying this because they are just searching for motorbike toys, or they're searching for vintage toys or something like that. You don't really want to be selling to those people. You want to be selling to people who specifically want the Evel Knievel ideal stunt cycle motorcycle here. And as you can see, once you start searching for this specifically, you find exactly what you want, and you'll find it in certain different conditions. But really, what your job at this stage is just to get the most amount of money for it, because people are either going to buy it or they're not going to buy it. No one's going to randomly stumble across it. This is very much this type of item. Now, this is an extreme example of something that people will be specifically searching for, but there are lots of examples across lots of categories. And if you're a reseller or a thrifter, this is going to kind of be your bread and butter. And a lot of your items are going to be so specific that mostly you're not going to have to try super hard for search engine stuff. You just need to wait for someone who really wants the item to come along. And that's where getting the best price is really the only skill that's going to make a big difference to your day. Now, also, another really important point is don't fall into the trap of listening to someone, or indeed listening to yourself, saying, my store is going really well. I get items and they fly off the shelf. My turnover is extraordinary. I am doing a great job. I am brilliant at eBay. Now, selling stuff quickly is pretty good, but if you're consistently selling stuff almost immediately that you list it, then you are probably leaving money on the table. And enthusiasts are spotting your items, spotting that they are a bargain, and they're snapping them up. And they may even be flipping them. You know, I've bought stuff on eBay to sell on eBay because it's been underpriced. An example here would be, you know, the big proper Lego Death Star. With something like this, there is a huge range of pricing, and sometimes people can come on the platform and they can list it a little bit lower than the proper price, and it will again fly off the shelf. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person who gave someone a special bargain. It might give you a warm glow. Your customer may feel really good, but this is sometimes the difference between you having a solid, profitable business and not. You have to take the opportunities to get as much money as possible. Otherwise, you might just as well give up. Now I'm going to be mean about auctions again. And if you've watched my previous video, you'll see this exciting graphic already. It's really simple. If you do an eBay auction, you are going to get paid ever so slightly more than the amount that your second most enthusiastic buyer is prepared to pay. If you do an auction here, and we've said it, an auction starts at $20, John will pay up to $100 for the item, Phyllis will pay up to $60, and Diana will pay up to $80. So if all three of these people participate in your auction, you will make $81. You won't make $100. If John happens to be on holiday, then actually you'll make $61 because Diana will bid past Phyllis's maximum. If Diana and John aren't there, then Phyllis will pay $20 because no one else is bidding. And, you know, Diana might actually only come onto eBay when she gets paid once a month. You know, Phyllis might be on holiday. John could be doing jury duty. You know, there's all sorts of reasons. People aren't on eBay every single day. So if you do an auction, it's time limited and people may not notice it. Your best customer might just be away whilst your auction is going on. So I like, if I absolutely can, to give everybody a chance to see my item. So, I mean, if I had to do an auction, it would always be like a 10-day auction, because at least then everybody who looks at eBay once a week will probably see the item if they're looking for it. But, you know, a nice buy it now and giving yourself maybe 2-3 weeks to a month to sell something is really good. And also, if you use a buy it now and you're selling within 1 or 2 weeks, you're probably selling at the highest price you can, because you start your buy it nows at a high price, which we've discussed before, and then you can bring the fixed price down over time. So, you know, we'll talk about this in a second, about treating buy it nows a little bit like an auction psychologically in your head. But remember, our goal here, our pricing goal, is to get John to give us the full $100. That's what we want here now. We don't want John with a smile on his face getting this for $21 or $61 or even $81. We want him to be happy, but he was prepared to pay $100, and we want to get that $100 from him. And that's why we're not doing auctions, but we will kind of think of our buy it nows like auctions. So now we've got to buy it now, but we're going to still think of it like an auction, because actually, in terms of the customers who are interested in this item, nothing has actually changed. John will still pay up to $100 for the item, Phyllis will pay up to $60, Diana will pay up to $80, and all of them in this case are interested in a lovely, lovely space rocket, the object of their desire. This is just a function of time. So the way you change your price depends on your time sensitivity. If you have all of the time in the world, then you have this object priced up at $100. Then John will turn up and he will but he'll buy it. Now, if you actually have it priced at $120, then you know that actually no matter, well, you don't know, but you will find out, because a month will pass, for instance, or 2 weeks will pass or something, and John will see it, and Phyllis will see it, and Diana will see it, but none of them is prepared to pay 120, so it will remain unsold. So if it remains unsold for a decent amount of time and you've held your nerve, then comes the time at which you would drop the price. So maybe you drop it from 120 to 100 and you find your John, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're dropping it too quickly down to 80 so that Diana sees it and buys it before John can turn up. It's also why you try and encourage watchers as much as possible, and you do allow people to make offers as well, because if all three of these people have seen your object of desire when it was priced at 120 and they have watched it, or you've made them aware that there's offers on there, then actually before you drop the price from 120 to 100, maybe you send offers out to all of your watchers saying, look, if you buy this in the next 48 hours, you can have 10% off. And it may well be that's not enough. That only drops it down to 108, but it might be the nudge that they need to go, all right, actually, I will pay a little bit more. And now I know that other people are watching it. I might be nervous that someone might buy it from underneath me. But really, you should think of your buy it nows in terms of that. They're just long, slow downward auctions. And the longer you can hold your nerve, the more likely you are to find your best buyer and the best price you can get. Obviously, you do have to kind of sell the item at some stage. So if you have it at a high price for quite a long period of time, based on how you feel, how much storage you have, then you just move the price down a little more quickly than that. But think of it in those terms. Think of actual human beings making decisions, going on holiday, not looking at eBay, looking at something and saying, oh, I'm not sure whether I can afford that yet. Maybe something else will come along that I can buy instead that's cheaper. That kind of thing. And then that gives you the basis, behind the psychology of why fixed price and slowly reducing your price is the best way to achieve what you want. Nobody's trying hard to win a silver medal, but let me explain why being the second best may be a sensible thing to do. Again, it's about leaving money on the table, and it's also about facing the realities of life. Like in the real world, John, who is really enthusiastic about this item and is prepared to pay the most for it, is probably going to end up paying less because of his enthusiasm and his knowledge. It is a truism that your potentially best buyer is probably the person who's going to buy their object the cheapest. If you're checking every day and you know what's going on, then when something comes up that's a good deal, you'll be able to pounce upon it. I've done it many times. So you need to make the best of a bad result for yourself. So imagine you're selling your object of desire and you've got it at 80. Someone comes along and they either set an auction with a low beginning price, or they offer it cheaper than you. Your instinct will be, well, no one's going to buy my object because this other object is cheaper. People will come, they'll see the space rocket, they'll see £20, and they will buy it. And then I won't get a sale. But again, we're thinking of this a little bit like an auction. You've got John, you've got Phyllis, you've got Diana. Now, annoyingly, it's very likely that it's going to be John that gets the object of desire for 20. But then Phyllis and Diana still want the object. The cheap one is gone. Now you're next in line, and sucks to be them, but they may pay you. Diana may come along and pay you the 80. The other thing that's quite interesting about this is you can exploit the fact that other people are foolishly using auctions, because you, with the second price, or just a good price, will be able to kind of pounce on people when they're in that vulnerable, I wanted that item, but I didn't win the auction. So, it may well be that John bids on an auction and gets quite a high price, at which point either Phyllis or Diana think, well, I didn't spend enough money. I'm not going to get what I want, but here's one that's a buy it now. I can get it now. I can secure it. I don't have to worry about another John turning up. So that second price benefit is really there. Now, these are simplified examples because obviously, there is lots of transaction going on eBay at any given time. And you may actually find yourself moving from being the fifth in a particular price range up to first quite quickly. It just depends on who's buying. And we'll get into that. But looking at the markets you're in and thinking about how unique is my item, what position is it, and what should I be thinking about when I suddenly find that my item is the best puppy in the shop right now. Okay, then. Let's look at some real-world examples of items that I own and how they're being sold on eBay and what my thoughts would be on what I would do. So here are some of my preciouses, all purchased on eBay as a comics enthusiast. DR and Quitch's Totally Awesome Guide to Life. I've got an interesting, if slightly damaged, copy of American Vampire Anthology #1. This one looks unassuming, but once more with footnotes, was a very limited print run hardback of Terry Pratchett stuff, which contains a few stories which really aren't published anywhere else. This one's a good one. The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first edition of their first graphic novel, which was discontinued, so they didn't make any more, and it's a limited run. And this one's signed, and I've got proof that the signature is genuine, and he's going to be the next George R.R. Martin, and there's a film coming out called Best Served Cold probably next year that's going to get everybody into his stuff. So this hopefully will also become even more valuable than it is. His enthusiasts really like this at the moment anyway. He has millions of readers of his books. But yeah, this is a good one. Then, sorry for the mess, this is my storeroom. I've got a one-sheet poster, American, for the Ride to Hangman's Tree. And then I actually have a woodcut picture of a Thomas Nast cartoon from Harper's Weekly in 1871, which is an interesting one. So on eBay, here we can see the one-sheet poster of the Ride to Hangman's Tree. And I've done a search here, and I'm looking at it. And what I see here is there's only two viable examples on eBay right now. One is at 25 plus 4 delivery. The other one is at 60 plus 29.75 with delivery from the United States. So that's a bit impractical. You can always price a little bit higher than things that are in different countries from you, just because people sit there and think, do I want to buy from a foreign buyer? And do I want to wait as long as it may take? And will there be problems with returns if I don't actually like the item, or if something goes wrong? So you can always price above someone in a different country, because people will make that trade-off. If we actually look at the detail of the one that looks like a more viable purchase, what we can see here is it is a single item. Sometimes it can be depressing. You'll see that they've got 5 copies of it or everything like that. So we know that once more than one person buys this, that's it gone. So actually, looking at this, I'd be thinking that I would price mine, if I wasn't in any rush, at, somewhere in between these two price points at 40 or 50, and of course I would start relatively high, but I'd be patient, because I wouldn't want to sell it for 25 plus £4. But what you also do is you do check and you tick for sold and completed items, and just check and see. And really what you have here is an example that there isn't a history of that poster being sold in any great volume. So there's nothing there which says actually £12 is a more realistic price, because that's what everyone's purchased it for. So I would probably put that one down in between the two prices that are there, unless I really wanted to get rid of it. If I really wanted to get rid of it, then I would just compete with this person. But it's not hard to store these. They don't take up a lot of room. You might be better off getting that second purchaser. Here's the Joe Abercrombie graphic novel. And with this one, if we look at the sold items and completed items here, no exact match. So again, there isn't a big history of this selling. Now, this is where my knowledge comes in, which is at the moment, things are a bit quiet on the Joe Abercrombie front. But he's releasing a new book next year, and the film, as I said, of one of his other books is going to come. I think it's going to create him a load more fans. I think it's going to create demand. And I think most people here are holding the line in terms of keeping the price high. In fact, I've seen the prices sitting there being a lot higher than this on both eBay and Abe Books and other sites before. But there is someone here, and they are offering 150 plus 950, which is effectively the lowest price within the UK for it. My one's signed, which I think obviously adds a bit more value to it, and I have proof of that signature too. So having something which really gives you the provenance of a signature does add more value to it. If I was listing, I wouldn't want to get rid of it quickly. I would price it up quite high. I would price it higher than the most expensive UK one because of the signature premium. Both of these sellers are accepting best offers, which is really sensible because this hasn't sold at this price. And I've seen on the forums, people really want to read this and they want a copy, but actually £150 may just be too rich. Like the intrinsic value of it means that everybody's sitting there thinking they have something super, super precious, but they have to wait for a whale to come along to do it. I think what may happen over time is people might crack and these prices might come down, but I'm just going to keep things to be fair, I'm going to keep the comic because I want the comic. But if I was selling it, I would wait until there was more of a buzz. And actually what I'd also do is I'd kind of wait until a few of these had actually been sold, so there was less supply on eBay. This one's quite interesting. It's DR and Quinch's Totally Awesome Guide to Life. And you can see that in this one, there's a $17.99. There's a foreign one. There's a $14.39. There's a $12.95 and $2.70. It's kind of coalescing around the same price, but there's some people who have more. There's one here for $9 plus 4 delivery, and they're all pre-owned. This isn't something it was printed a long time ago, so I doubt whether there's any kind of new ones of these there. Now, what's interesting here is you're looking at loads of people fishing for the price, but this one, unlike those other ones where there really wasn't a transactional history, this is a bit more common and it's been more frequently sold. And there are 2 points to be made on this one. It's sold in September for £5 plus $2.95. It's sold again for £4 plus $1.55. Again, a mug with an auction there. Only 2 bids. It's like the only thing that's sadder than a 2-bid auction is a 1-bid auction. If you get a 1-bid auction, you must be feeling sick. But yeah, so one person didn't want it very much and another person got it quickly. Then, £5. So all of those people who have it listed quite high, we saw that it was around the 12 to 15 mark was a common price. You're thinking, well, then maybe not being very sensible about this. But probably what happened is there was a glut of these at the same time, because the one thing you do know here is that someone paid £12 plus £2.70. So someone has got £14.70. And I think that's the thing that you should keep in your heart. When you look at completed listings for your items, and you look at almost every item, there are going to be outliers. If you looked at this, you would say that the most common price for this book is a £5 and postage. But someone paid £12 plus postage for it. And you want to be that outlier. Don't be the person who did an auction and got £4 for it. Don't be the Chad that got 12 for it. And that's what you should be doing in your pricing. Unless you're desperate, unless you're on the run, don't sell your stuff at the bottom end of the curve. Let other people do that. Sell it at the top end of the curve. You're selling it to Dave, who will pay you the most. You're not selling it to Diana, someone who's paying to the least. You want to be the one that gets the best customers and the best prices. So remember that. This is a book I'll never sell. I'm such a big fan of Terry Pratchett, sadly no longer with us. There are, as you can see, only a handful of these, and there's only one in this country. I'm in the UK. So we look at the completed items, and there aren't any. Hasn't been sold. So again, there's nothing in here to indicate that there's any kind of track record of pricing. People don't let go of these very often because they are super precious. But what I'm sitting and thinking is that actually what I have to do is wait until this one is sold. I want to be the only person selling it in the UK, and then I could get some money for it. As I said, I'm not going to sell mine. But if I looked at this one, I wouldn't have it at 130.77 because actually, unless someone's prepared to buy it from overseas, I think there's a bit more fat. I think that I can go higher because I don't have any local competition. So I would go higher than that, but I'd put offers on there. And offers actually work quite well in this situation because someone will be sitting there and they will, in their head, say, look, I could actually get it if they rank it lowest price plus postage and packing. This is the cheapest price, despite the fact it's the only one that's in the UK. So someone will be sitting there and saying, well, look, I could actually get this for £142, but it's from the States. So I think he could price this, or she could price this at 150, because then what you'd be saying is, I'm not the cheapest price, but I am the cheapest price in this country, and I'm only an £8 premium over something that's going to come from a completely different country. My engraving is an interesting one. There is only one of these anywhere in the world. So, and it's in the US. Now, actually, there's almost going to be nobody who wants to buy this in the UK. So I actually am thinking that if I listed this, I would have to make sure that I posted to the US. I wouldn't use the global shipping program because actually that's quite expensive. But what I could do is deliberately set up the expensive for the buyer. I mean, what I'd do is I'd deliberately set up a shipping rate specifically because it would be cheap to post because it's just a piece of, it's a thin piece of paper. But as you can see, there's one of them. It's in the States. It's $150. They are offering a best offer. When it's gone, I would have the only one, at which point I would put it up there and I would start it high. But I would make sure in the listing that I was saying to people, make me an offer, because I want people, if genuinely and realistically it's not worth a ton more and people aren't going to pay for it, then, and you can see a few other Thomas Nast cartoons, not the one that I have gone for quite high amounts of money, but also you can see that a number of them have gone for best offer accepted rather than the headline offer. So again, I would probably wait, because my natural audience won't want to buy off me in the UK if they're in the US, if there's something there, and I would have to undercut the price then. So I'd have to undercut that $150 so that people would be prepared to make the sacrifice of buying from me overseas. Last one, and something I forgot, just another little tip in case you weren't aware of it. You can just type in your barcode number as a search when you're dealing with media products and things like that, because eBay has a really good catalog. And so if you have the barcode of the item, then it's often just quicker and more efficient to type in that number, and it's going to give you everything there. Now, a couple of interesting points on pricing here, which is, you've got three examples of this particular comic. Mine's a bit battered, and again, I don't particularly want to sell it. In this case, everything is from the United States. So that gives me a big advantage in the UK, and I can price up, because if anyone in the UK wants this specific comic, which you need to complete a set, then they're going to get it off me. The interesting thing here is this one is signed at $11.96 plus 17 delivery, but let's call it $11.96. This one here, assorted singles of this, $385 to $462. These aren't signed, but there's a big difference in this price, and no one else is selling it. So you're asking, why is this at $385? Well, if $5.99 is the dollar here, and there are different comics all split up. This person is doing a really good job because they're splitting the lot and they're charging individually for each of them. And the way that eBay search works is so long as they're using the right identifiers, then as you see, even though there's lots of listings here, when I searched for it, it showed me the one that I was searching for. But in the absence of anyone else selling it, I would have had the price a bit higher than that. That seems like almost a discounted off the shelf price. You could have put more onto this. Then the other thing we learned from this is this one here, it's a set of 9 for £32.39. It will be dollars. So it'll be $41.99 for this set of 9 here. Now, what I will tell you is it's very, very rare that selling things as a set will make you more money than selling them as individual units. Now, there are certain exceptions to this, where it is extraordinarily difficult to create a whole set, then potentially sometimes the completeness of it is the thing that people want. But actually what people tend to do in the collectible space on eBay is they build things one by one. Now, that's why the individual ones tend to go for more, because you'll get a ton more for something which is the final piece of a jigsaw. And actually, there's a good living to be had in terms of buying job lots that people sell and then splitting them and selling them individually. So if you think about it, there's 9 of these specials here for $41. But someone was selling the individual ones for $5.99. And with this, what you could have done is sold these 9 all separately, because you probably get $10 for one of them if it's the one that someone really wants. And all right, yeah, that may mean that the third one that you sell is cheaper and the 7th one is more expensive, and so on and so forth. But generally, on average, you will get more money by splitting up the lot, because being the last piece in the jigsaw, being something that someone definitely wants is there. And, you're really reducing your market when you're saying, I only want someone who really wants all of these items, or they're prepared to buy some items that they don't want in order to get what they actually do. So a couple of insights from this one as well. And that finishes up the examples that we have of how people are doing pricing, how we would do it differently. Now, bear in mind that we haven't really seen too many auctions here. And I think that's because people are kind of seeing sense a little bit and auctions are going out of favor. But just remember that if you have an auction and you start it low, then some of this stuff is really expensive. You don't know what it is, and you think an auction might get you the best price, but you might not have enough people actually seeing the item, and so therefore something that could have been worth maybe like 100, 200 actually goes for a way, way lower price. So again, we hate auctions here. But that kind of concludes the live examples portion. Little footnote to that. A lot of the items that we just discussed were purchased quite a while ago, but I did dig out some old emails just to show you, I really wanted all of these items. We've now seen what they kind of go for. Just to remind you, the Terry Pratchett, once more with footnotes, I paid £99 for it. I would have paid more, but I'm good at eBay, and people weren't stretching the prices for me. The Joe Abercrombie book, I paid $85.50 for. And again, I've got this little email saying higher, okay for the graphic novel, just to be signed by the Joe Abercrombie. So this is a useful email in and of itself, which is why I've kept it. But it also shows that I really wanted this, but I only paid $85.50 for something that right now you can't get for much less than $150. And at certain periods of time, these things haven't been on sale for less than $500. So remember, the person who can pay you the most may be the person who pays you the least, and you need to squeeze people like me and get me to pay you more money. Back to the summary. You know it. You know the type of items that you have, and sometimes the only place where you can really apply your skill to make a difference is making more money. So don't leave money on the table. Following from that point is don't sell too quickly. If your stuff is flying off the shelf, then you are probably not charging as much money for it as you can. Things only have to fly off the shelf if your shelf is completely full and you really need the money. Anyone can sell a Rolls Royce for £10. You don't want to be that person. Let's be mean about auctions again. Auctions are your tool of last resort. The reminder I always say to people is, look, you can use auctions if you really have to, and the only benefit they have is that they're incredibly quick. You don't have to research prices, don't do anything. So again, if you're on the run from the law or you're desperate to sell things quickly, banging on an auction ensures that it's much more likely to sell, and it'll be really quick and it will establish some kind of value. But the one thing you can be sure of is that an auction will never get you the most money that someone's prepared to pay for something. It will always get you a cent more than the second most important customer for you, the person who wants it second most. But do think of Buy It Now like an auction. Think of those customers. Think how often they're visiting eBay. Think how long do I have to keep my item up to make sure that everybody's seen it. And then once I feel as though everybody's seen it but no one's bought it, then I think about bringing the price down, making offers, that kind of thing. But think of it in terms of human beings visiting eBay with different levels of want and need from your item. Think about the merits of being the second cheapest. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the person who gave someone a bargain and put a smile on their face. Sometimes it's worth waiting until you have a better opportunity and then taking more money as a result of it. Again, you're not in a rush. Think about uniqueness. Now, this is interesting from a sourcing point of view, because actually finding something which there's not a lot of for sale on eBay means that you might get that impulse purchase, silly money, middle of the night, drunk on wine kind of purchase. So it might be better to get something that seems intrinsically less valuable, but that is rare and so may get that situational value at some stage. And then look at the examples that I gave you. Look at what you're selling, where you're positioned in terms of pricing versus other people. Look at the history. Think of the psychology of the individual buyer, and be careful about what you're doing with your pricing, and be prepared to be flexible with your pricing given the current situation of your item sales on eBay right now. Now, if you follow all those rules, even if you do it gently, you'll find that you start just making more money for every sale. And if you imagine you were making an average of 10% more on all of your existing sales, how much extra difference that would make to your profits at the end of the month. So I hope you enjoyed this video too. If you did, please like and subscribe and tell all your friends. And as I always say, I encourage people to put comments in. I answer comments, and also request other things you want me to talk about. Thanks and goodbye.